Greetings and welcome to the Frank-Ratchye Studio for Creative Inquiry. I am Golan Levin, and the space you're in is the research laboratory of the College of Fine Arts, dedicated to atypical, anti-disciplinary, and interinstitutional research and outreach at the intersection of art, science, technology, and culture. It's my pleasure to introduce Salome, Asega, and Iyapo Okunseinde. But before I do, I'm going to introduce Lauren Goshinsky, director of the VIA Festival and other events, who's going to explain a bit about what we're seeing tonight. So please, Lauren. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Golan. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm the co-director of the VIA Festival and director of this project that we're doing for VIA, which is called the AWC Lab, or August Wilson Center Lab, or August Wilson Center Co-Lab. There's so many ways to think about this project. And the August Wilson Center Lab is intended to be an experimental platform inside August Wilson Center during the Three Rivers Arts Festival. So how many people have gone to the Three Rivers Arts Festival? Lots of people. Good. So you kind of know the deal. You know what the Three Rivers Arts Festival is like. And the August Wilson Center, known for the playwright August Wilson, Pittsburgher, is an amazing facility that provides a lot of top-level programming for theater, dance. They do a lot of artist meetups, and they have a fabulous program. And this year, they invited people from around Pittsburgh, different organizations, to propose programming throughout the year. So the AWC Lab begins with two visiting artist collectives. One is Iyapo Repository, and the other one is Complex Movements, which are from Detroit. Both artist collectives already have kind of soft and hard connections in the city. And the idea, which we're kind of just beginning now, is to create deeper and further connections between people to create kind of the base for this lab and experimental space. So it's very open, and there's a lot of opportunity right now to become involved with the artist groups, which I will help facilitate, but the programming is really driven. It's an artist-driven program. And so if you have any questions, we can all talk about it later. Like I said, we're in development phase right now. And the lab will happen June 2nd through 9th this summer. And with that, I would like to introduce... Oh, I'm sorry. And so what's going to happen here tonight, thanks, is that Salome and Ayo are going to talk a bit about their work, their combined practice and their solo practices. But what we're going to spend most of the time doing is actually making stuff. So we're going to be making future archives, which they can explain to you further. And I think that's it, right? All right, cool. Thanks.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you for coming out today. Okay, so before we tell you about the work we do together, we want to tell you a little bit about our solo practices and how we got here. So this is a project I started during my thesis research at Parsons called Crown Heights Mic. It's a collaboratively built pirate radio station based in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. The transmitter runs on the FM dial and has about a mile radius. So local residents and business owners could sign up for a time slot, and I would pass off this little radio setup from DJ to DJ, and the only rule was that your radio show had to be in Crown Heights, in the neighborhood. And what I love about this project is the transmitter just becomes a tool, and the project is really about who participates. The programming is all driven by who's in the area and has control of this transmitter. So this is Fahid, who owns a general store in the neighborhood. He got into this project so much that he started advertising his shows on the front of his store. And so my love for radio later grew into this project called OJBK FM. I worked with Houston-based artist collective Odabenga Jones and Associates. The first iteration of our project was in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and then we went to Atlanta and then also Third Ward, Houston. So I outfitted this beautiful 1959 cotton candy pink Cadillac with a web radio server, and we hosted local shows on Black history and Black music. And so it made public radio truly public. Anyone could walk up and sort of get on the mic. And our shows range from hyper-local Black history lessons to DJ sets and live performances. So this is another project called Level Up. It's a game that teaches you how to do the real Harlem Shake using Connect. Does anyone remember the real Harlem Shake? there was the DJ Bauer version in 2012, where he just took the name and people were like, why, like frantically like moving, and like that's not the real Harlem Shake. So I worked with Light Feet dancers through the New Museum, through residency at the New Museum. I worked with Light Feet dancers, curator and dancer Ali Rosa Salas and Crybaby Cozy. And I was tracking these dancers' shoulder movements, which became like the data points for winning and losing in the game. And Light Feet dancers, for folks who have been to New York, are like the last keepers of the Harlem Shake. They're the dancers you see on the subway trains that like will dance on the poles. This is Crybaby Cozy. So the game starts with a minute-long instructional round where he teaches you how to do the Harlem Shake, and you go into like a battle round with some of the dancers. That's the real Harlem Shake. And this is what the game looks like in install. And I'll pass it off to Ayo.
I think I could use this mic.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. An incredible story from space.
When people say they saw 4 lantern-like objects forming a diamond shape in the air, hovering in the sky for over an hour. And aviation experts say they don't know what it was. It wasn't a plane.
Need to prepare themselves very soon for an announcement from our government that there is, in fact, an extraterrestrial presence engaging this planet and the human race.
In the future, where an African astronaut could come back. I am the future. Yes, so that's one of my pieces for my thesis, where I come back as an African astronaut from the future, and I walk around the city in this sort of ritualistic practice, so referencing West African masquerades by performing this act of ritual I'm actually creating the future. So a lot of my practice involves sort of time hopping, but also hopping in different spiritual levels as well, moving from one spiritual level to the other. So I take this suit and I go to different cities. Here I'm in Brooklyn, and it's a fully functional suit that has, well, I'll get into that later, I think. It's the main I guess inspiration for the suit was my name, which is Okunseinde, which is short for Olokunseinde, which means the god of the sea returns, which is, so we have a masquerade associated with our name, the Okun masquerade, which is sea deity. So by performing this act of walking around, I'm referencing this deity. And I take the suit to traditionally spots that are mainly African American or African, that have African or African American historical significance. So here you see me with the suit at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial and at the Civil War, African American Civil War Memorial. So recently I've been figuring out that I could also use the suit for other purposes as well. So just walking around at any time, any place, I feel very comfortable with it. I've taken it to jury duty. So here I walked into the courthouse with it, and I actually got police officers wanted to take selfies with me. Yeah. On the suit, there are different. So the suit allows me to breathe. It does audio, video recording. Does geolocation with GPS. It gives me food. It gives me water, and it cools me down as well. So all these functions of the suit can then I could control them with a panel, and I have display lights on the inside that let me know what's going on. So think about this suit as a sort of time travel, space travel piece that allows the inhabitant of the suit to live within time zones and spaces that are that might be hostile to him. And to aid with that, there are artifacts that are on the suit. So this one has an air pump in it and CO2 sensors, and it's a combination of magic and technology because the feathers are consecrated feathers, so as they flap, they cleanse the air. This piece over here has water in it, and it mimics, in the narrative, it talks about how they came about creating this piece as a combination of animal and plant. So it also defecates these little pellets that then I eat. And then this piece is a communicator. So the combination of these artifacts, started thinking about if these are artifacts of this astronaut, what sort of other artifacts could exist in the future? What sort of other African artifacts could exist in the future? And this is where Salome and I meet.
Yeah, so Ayo and I meet at this intersection of how cultural art and artifacts are recorded, preserved, and celebrated. Before we talk about the project we're working on, we should talk a little bit about the history of exhibiting African diasporic art and culture. Before institutions collected and shared objects, they were exhibiting people. This is Odabenga, a Congolese man who was seized by slave traders in the early 1900s to be exhibited in the St. Louis World Fair, and then was later sold to explorer Samuel Werner to be exhibited in the Bronx Zoo's Monkey's House, where he was later freed but then committed suicide. Or even earlier, there was Sarji Bartman, one of two South African women who were exhibited as freak show attractions in 19th century Europe under the name Hottentot Venus.
So starting with the exhibition of people, then you go into the exhibition of these art objects and artifacts that are always originally taken out of context. A lot of African artifacts actually exist as a functional part of the society. So taking them out of context and also taking them from the land that they were created. So it's this theft of wealth, but also theft of culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many of our museums have robust collections of African artifacts, but the credit line is always attributed to like a story of seizure of who bought it, who collected it, and how it got to the museum, but never like the real narrative, right? Like the real context. So Iyapo Repository starts from this place. Our project starts from this place of wanting to contextualize artifacts.
The repository exists in the future, so I'm going to do the thing that I do all the time. This is our timeline. Over here is the future. Over here is where we are now. So this repository collects artifacts from here, which is our future, but which is their past. And the objects are African diasporic artifacts, technological African diasporic artifacts. We were influenced by a lot of things, one of them being electronic waste and where electronic waste goes and the damage it has in the environment. And also the idea of consumerism and just this notion of consuming and then throwing things away as opposed to recycling it. So with that in mind, we were big fans of artists such as Fabrice Monteiro, and he is a Senegalese artist that uses e-waste and these sort of gigantic epic photographs And also Kevin Doe, who is a Sierra Leonean teenager that uses electronic waste to create radios and these sort of engineering pieces.
Some of Kelvin's shows are archived online. He goes by DJ Focus. So if you're ever want some good Afrobeat, go listen to this teenager.
And of course, science fiction. A lot of science fiction films. This is Pumzi, which everybody should watch. It's about environmental issues such as water and drought. Short film is on YouTube, so you could take a look at that. And Crumbs by Miguel Lanzo, and it's the first Ethiopian post-apocalyptic film, and it's a love story. It's a sci-fi epic. It's everything.
Yeah. We're also influenced by things that happen on the continent. We love Hype Williams. If you haven't seen Belly, Hype Williams' first feature-length film, it's okay because the narrative sort of falls apart very early on, but you should watch the intro because it's just so stunning, and features all the best rappers from the late 90s, early 2000s. These are more stills from Hype Williams music videos. We're also influenced by the now retro future aesthetics of early electronic music, public access TV shows that were popping up all around the country in the late 80s, early 90s in cities like Detroit, Chicago, Memphis, Atlanta. This is a still from Detroit's The New Dance Show. We're also influenced by how teens of color are using social media platforms to invent language. This is definitely an act of futuring. This is Peaches Monroe, who came up with the phrase, do people know? On fleek, right. So people always ask us, where does the name come from? What does Iyapo mean? So Iyapo comes from Lilith Iyapo, a character in Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis trilogy. She's the last human being that resembles humans of our kind, so we pay tribute to her. And we have 4 divisions in the repository. Rare books is where we keep all of our, all the printed material and audio that inspire the project. Manuscript and art and artifacts division we'll talk about in a second. And moving image division is where we keep the films that contextualize the artifacts we make. So in our workshops, we work with participants on fleshing out the manuscript in the art and artifacts division. We host a series of workshops to generate the artifacts that end up in our collection. And the way we do this is through this game. So each participant becomes an archivist of the repository, and they're dealt these 3 cards: a narrative card, a domain card, and an object card. So if this was your set of cards, you would have to come up with a revolutionary political tool that somehow changes color. So we provide a little bit of scaffolding, so we're not just asking people to invent the future generally. And then you take your object and you draw it on this very official repository document, and this becomes a manuscript that we put in our division. And we've hosted public workshops on the street in our neighborhood. When we have on-the-street activations, Ayo dresses as the Afronaut, so we can barter selfies for artifacts. And we've done workshops through residencies at iBeam, the Laundromat Project. We partnered with community-driven organizations, universities, and museums to host us. We've done workshops at Mokata, Brooklyn Museum, Rhizome, DC, CUNY, and right here.
So we have different levels of workshops, I guess one could say. I don't want to say the basic one, but the simple one is that we create these manuscripts, or rather the audience reveals these manuscripts. And then we've started doing these rapid prototype sessions with the audience as well, where they actually get to create and fabricate using Arduinos and LEDs to fabricate a rough version of their prototype. This piece here, I think, is a prototype of a seed bank that one could carry around, and at certain times it'll crack open, depending on the amount of drought one is experiencing. And this one, it has an LED on it. I think it signifies different. So I think she had an apocalyptic future, and it signifies different, I guess, class systems within the future that she proposed. And we've now moved to a sort of a third version where we start creating. So we started creating physical prototypes. Now we're creating virtual prototypes as well. So we've been working with the Vibe to create these 3D these virtual renderings that hopefully we could 3D print at some point or do something else with. We're not quite sure yet.
So here are some examples of artifacts that have come out of our workshops. This is a bodysuit that gives you the calming sensation of being underwater. It's a therapeutic tool for treating people with water-related traumas, which got us to talk a lot in our workshops about the transatlantic slave trade as a root trauma for many Black Americans. And this is a suit fabricated, and we'll play a little video so you can see it in motion.
The piece has tubes and water from the Atlantic Ocean that runs through the tubes, and is pumped through the device that she's holding. It also has vibration motors that vibrate to the tidal patterns of the ocean. And the idea is that it sort of encompasses you in the Atlantic Ocean, and you feel these vibrations, and hopefully it alleviates some of that culture trauma.
So this is the chemo device. It's a portable device that can also be worn as a necklace. It picks up on negative vibrations and quickly alerts the wearer. We had to figure out a way to qualify and quantify what negative vibrations mean, which led us to a conversation about state-sanctioned violence and racist policing.
So this piece has a GPS unit within it, and we have a database of different locations that Black bodies have been killed by police and state actors. And when you wear this necklace around New York City, you reach this location, it'll light up based on that location.
And these are affirmation pills, a prescribed or like vitamin-like supplement that when taken gives you specialized Black history lessons. So here we have civil rights, transatlantic slave trade, and rock and roll. So you just pop a pill and you get the information.
So the capsule, the boxes have LEDs, organic LED displays on them, and that gives you the prescription, the dose, and the reason why you should be taking them. And then within the capsule, we have our own special FDA-approved concoctions that we created. The great thing about this is that all these pieces are supposed to be interactive. So when we display this, we actually see people going up and taking the pills, and we're like, yes. So we've been playing around with, not playing around, but thinking seriously about different ways to exhibit the works. So one of usually the way we do it is we have our manuscript division over here. So over here we have about 25 manuscripts, and then we have the different artifacts around. We're now thinking about how to create our museum, thinking about the ways museums have been created in the past and trying to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that pitfalls of presentation that have occurred in the past. So this is an example of that, where we have the mannequin over here, and then it's bathed in blue light, and then we have this gigantic loop of the video. This was at the Knockdown Center for the Mami Water Show.
So here are a couple things we've learned from this project so far. First, we've learned that you have to let go a lot when you work collaboratively. Although as artists, we might have had certain visions and intentions for the project, the project and the work really gets shaped by who participates, who shows up, and also who doesn't show up. Here's a sad Ayo after a first failed attempt to do an on-the-street workshop. We spent so much time planning the perfect setup and then quickly realized day of that nobody was going to stop at a busy intersection to talk to us about the future during last-minute holiday shopping too. So this made us think a lot about levels of engagement and how we have to be aware and considerate of what we're asking people to do with us. We also learned that most of the ideas coming out of the workshops were about real things happening now, and that this card game just provided a safety and a levity for discussions around the issues and violence affecting us presently. And that maybe we need to rethink calling our work Afrofuturist, because maybe our workshops are simply design thinking workshops, and the objects we build together are prototypes for the alternative, the real, the radical, and the brave. And also just really highlighting and understanding that what we're doing is operates under an already established legacy of creating self-determined societies. This is Gloria, aka, well, her name is Gloria Richardson, but people call her Glorious Gloria. She pushed past, have people seen this photo where she's pushing past a National Guard bayonet? This is Alabama, 1963.
So let's step back. The first year of this project, or the first 6 months or something of that project, was really testing out, does this work? Can we create these artifacts? Is our workshop flow correct? And we think we have that. So now the next step is sort of utilizing these as tools, utilizing the workshops and the artifacts that we create as tools. So to that effect, we've been showing a lot. We showed at the Shanghai Biennale. So this is us at the Shanghai Biennale, and it was interesting to get perspective from outside of the U.S. on the project as well. And we're going to be working with Recess Asylum, where we're working with teens, and basically using our workshop and our prototyping methods as a way to help teens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the new assembly space is partnering with Brooklyn Justice Initiative. So we're working with teens who are specifically facing court sentencing. And so this is an eight-week program we'll be doing with them. And once they've completed the program, their records will be sealed and cleared. And so this is just what the space looks like, and we'll transform it.
So we're also really excited that, so we've been dealing a lot with the arts and artifacts and the manuscript division. So we're excited that at the August Wilson Center in June, we're going to be working with the film division and the rare books division. So at the August Wilson Center, we'll be building out even more of the Iyapo Repository, creating a resource library for our rare books, and commissioning and creating films to go in our film division, and we'll be screening all of that as well.
Mm-hmm. So that ends the artist talk portion of this, and we wanted to do a quick activity with folks that will kind of if people can stick around past 6:30, you can continue doing the prototyping and VR aspects of our workshop. But we want to at least do manuscripts with everyone in the room right now.